She did. And she paid the emotional price for it the next day. It was a late afternoon flight from Dallas to Phoenix, just another routine trip for most passengers. The steady hum of the airplane filled the cabin as people settled into their seats. But for a few, this flight would become an unforgettable experience. Among them was a man in uniform, tall and composed. His fatigues were crisply pressed, his presence calm yet commanding. He didn't seek attention but exuded a quiet respect, something earned through years of service, not through words. He sat near the middle of the plane, nodding politely at the flight attendants before settling in. In the row ahead, a woman in her early 50s sat with an air of self-importance. Dressed in a tailored blazer, her posture rigid, her eyes scanned the cabin as if assessing every passenger, mentally deciding who might disturb her peace. When her gaze landed on the soldier, a flicker of disdain crossed her face. It was subtle, just a brief sneer before she turned her attention back to her phone, but it lingered like a shadow. The flight attendants moved through the aisle, ensuring all was in order. The soldier quietly stowed his duffel bag in the overhead compartment. But as he did, the woman twisted slightly in her seat, muttering just loud enough for those around her to hear. You'd think they'd put people like that somewhere else. Uniform or not, it doesn't mean much these days. The air thickened with tension. Passengers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to react. The soldier, seemingly oblivious, adjusted his seatbelt, his attention elsewhere. But her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken cruelty. No one said a word. They all just sat there, frozen in the uncomfortable silence that followed. The plane took off, the engines roaring to life as it soared into the sky. Yet the discomfort didn't fade. It settled like an invisible storm cloud, threatening to rain down at any moment. As the flight leveled out and the seatbelt sign dinged off, the woman's disdain seemed to grow. She shifted in her seat, her gaze drifting back toward the soldier more than once, each look more judgmental than the last. She leaned toward the older man beside her, her voice dripping with derision. It's just strange, isn't it? A soldier on a flight like this. Don't they usually fly on their own planes or something? The man shrugged, offering a noncommittal response, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to engage. But the woman wasn't finished. I mean, really. These days, anyone can wear a uniform. Doesn't mean they're any kind of hero. Her words, sharp and dismissive, seemed to travel farther than she realized. A woman sitting across the aisle glanced up from her book, furrowing her brow. A young couple, 2 rows ahead, exchanged an uncomfortable look. But still, the soldier remained silent, his focus unwavering as he scribbled something in his notebook. He didn't flinch at her remarks. Didn't even glance in her direction. His calmness only seemed to fuel the woman's irritation. She pressed the call button for the flight attendant. Elena, a young woman with a bright smile, arrived quickly. Yes, ma'am. How can I help you? I'd like to move seats, the woman said, her tone clipped as she tilted her head in the soldier's direction. I'd prefer somewhere quieter. Elena blinked, her professionalism masking her surprise. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked. There aren't any other seats available. The woman sighed dramatically, waving her hand dismissively. Fine. I'll manage. Passengers around her exchanged glances, their discomfort palpable. A man in his 30s leaned over to whisper to his wife, "What's her problem?" But no one spoke up. The unspoken rules of politeness held them all captive, and so the tension simmered in the background, unaddressed. Despite the growing discomfort, the soldier remained unfazed. His eyes never left the notebook in his lap. Every so often, he paused to look out the window, his mind seemingly elsewhere. Whatever he was writing, it held his full attention. The petty remarks seemed to fade into the background of his world, irrelevant and inconsequential. Yet, the woman's comments didn't stop. As the drink service began, she muttered another passive-aggressive remark, loud enough for others to hear, this time directed at Elena. I guess standards must have changed. Can't imagine my father sitting next to someone like that back in his day. Elena froze for a brief moment before recovering, her voice steady as she offered the standard choices. Would you like coffee or tea, ma'am? Black coffee. No cream, no sugar, the woman snapped, clearly irritated that her comments hadn't provoked a response. The soldier, in contrast, ordered water, smiling warmly at Elena. Thank you, he said softly, his voice steady and kind. Elena smiled back, grateful for the pleasant interaction after the tense exchange. As the flight wore on, the woman's remarks grew sharper. She complained about the service, the seating, even the air conditioning, each gripe thinly veiling her disdain for the soldier. Yet, the soldier remained a picture of calm. His broad shoulders relaxed, his eyes focused on the notebook in his lap. The corners of his mouth twitched now and then, almost imperceptibly, as if caught in some private thought. There was something about him, something deeper than mere duty. His silence wasn't indifference, it was strength. A small child seated in front of him turned around and stared, his chubby hands gripping the seat's edge. Are you a real soldier? The child asked, his voice full of wonder. The soldier's expression softened. I am, he replied with a gentle smile. The boy's mother quickly apologized. I'm so sorry, he's just curious. It's no trouble, the soldier said, his tone warm. It's always good to ask questions. The boy grinned, clearly in awe. Do you fight bad guys? The soldier hesitated for a moment, his smile faltering just slightly. Sometimes I help keep people safe, he said, his voice quiet but full of a humility that spoke volumes. The exchange was brief, but it was enough. A few passengers who had been eyeing him with curiosity now seemed to see him in a new light. But the woman remained unmoved. She rolled her eyes and muttered something about playing hero, but her words barely reached the soldier, who had already returned to his notebook. In the back, Elena whispered to a colleague, he's got more patience than anyone I've ever seen. And she was right. The soldier wasn't ignoring the woman's remarks out of indifference. He was choosing not to engage. He had learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting, and this wasn't one of them. Perhaps he had something far heavier to carry than her words could ever touch. As the flight neared its destination, the soldier carefully folded his notebook and tucked it away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, cradling it as if it were fragile, made of glass. For a moment, his expression changed. The calm facade wavered, replaced by something deeper, grief, perhaps, or reverence. The box wasn't flashy, but it held significance. Those seated nearby noticed but didn't dare ask. The unspoken understanding was clear, whatever it wasn't their place to pry. The soldier closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, the calmness had returned, as if he had drawn strength from whatever memory the box contained. But the weight of that moment wouldn't hit anyone, not even the woman, until the next day.